Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of the YouTube world, CJ Rose's back in the building. Welcome back to the channel. All right, 2020 has been a crazy year. A lot of ups, a lot of more downs than ups, personally. And not only was it crazy for us, it was also crazy for everything else, including wrestling, more preferably the WWE. I believe WWE was the first to do something different with their regular schedule programming, changing the venues from their stadiums, the stadiums that they go to, the arenas they go to, all the way to the Performance Center, to where they are now, the Thunderdome. So, with that being said, I am here to grade every WWE pay-per-view in 2020. Now, before I get any further, I have to say this. First off, rest in peace to Luke Harper, Brody Lee, John, however you know him by. Rest in peace to him. For the last couple of days, I've been seeing nothing but support and just nothing but heartfelt messages towards him. I didn't realize how big of a person he was to the whole wrestling community. It's a beautiful thing, man. Rest in peace to him, man. Hope his family does well. I just heard Brody Lee Jr. signs to AEW. That's a really good look. Hopefully, when he grows up, he could follow in his father's footsteps. That's a cool thing, man. Absolutely. Rest in peace to you and your family. Absolutely. Rest in peace to you. Prayers up for your family. Sorry about that. But yeah. With that in mind, let me grade and rank every WWE pay-per-view. Starting off with the Royal Rumble 2020, which I will say was a very good way to start off the year for WWE. Good pay-per-view. Everything was just... things were right. I can't say everything was right, but things were good enough, you know. This is the pay-per-view. You had Roman Reigns versus King Corbin in that falls count anyway match. That match was You had Bayley versus Lacey Evans for the SmackDown Women's Championship, which I forgot about. This was also Asuka versus Bayley for the Raw Women's Championship. That was a good match. You had The Fiend versus Bray Wyatt. The Fiend versus Bray Wyatt, Jesus. The Fiend versus Daniel Bryan in a strap match for the Universal Championship. That was a solid match. And of course, the men's and women's Royal Rumble matches. Charlotte won the women's, and of course, Drew McIntyre won the men's Royal Rumble. And the reason why I say this was a great start is because of the Royal Rumble itself. Everything about it and everything around it made it a great way to start. First of all, you have Brock Lesnar, who dominated half the field. The WWE champion was in the Royal Rumble, just volunteered himself into the Royal Rumble and dominated half the field. You saw a couple there was a couple returns, a couple people in the Royal Rumble. MVP made his return that night. You saw Keith Lee in the Royal Rumble. And then, of course, when Drew McIntyre came out and then he eliminated Brock Lesnar, that reaction was beautiful. Then, of course, was overshadowed by probably one of the greatest returns of all time, and I'm saying it here and there, when Edge made his return to the ring after 9 years. I watched that moment literally like maybe a couple hours ago. I watched it like 6 to 7 times because it's just, you have to understand, this is Edge coming back from 9 years, being told he can't wrestle again. He fought back to get back to wrestling. That moment was great. It was a beautiful moment. I loved it. And of course, again, Drew McIntyre winning the Royal Rumble. So with that, all around that, I give the Royal Rumble an A-. I give it an A-. Because of the return of Edge and the Royal Rumble itself, I give it an A-. Okay. We start off good, then we go bad real fast. Because next up is Super Showdown And not only do I not really remember the match card, but this is the pay-per-view where Goldberg won the Universal Championship from The Fiend. Burying The Fiend completely. But this had some here and there moments. I mean, things to remember. I remember this was also where The Undertaker returned and pinned AJ Styles in that gauntlet match for that trophy. I remember that, and that's what started the AJ Styles Undertaker feud leading into Mania. What I remember. Oh, Miz and Morrison winning the WWE SmackDown Tag Team Championships with New Day. I remember, yeah, that was part of that. Mansoor beat Dolph Ziggler. I remember that. The Street Profits lost to Seth Rollins and Murphy, who were the Raw Tag Team Champions at the time. Oh yeah, this Roman Reigns King Corbin Steel Cage match. I remember that. That was well, thank God that was the last match of that rivalry. Thank God. Oh yeah, this is also the pay-per-view where Ricochet got royally buried. Royally buried. He lost that match. That match with him and Brock Lesnar for the WWE title lasted 1:30. And if you think that's crazy, The Fiend versus Goldberg lasted 3 minutes. So both world title matches lasted less than 5 minutes combined. That is horrendous. And it also led to, after the night was over, for the first time, probably for the first time ever, we had 2 part-time world champions. Jesus. Yo, that was a bad night. Woo, that was a bad night. And because of that, I give Super Showdown, I give it an F. I give it an F minus. Only because The Undertaker returning, that was a good moment. So I give it that reason an F minus. But other than that, those 2 world title matches screwed up that whole pay-per-view. I promise you it did. Oh, that was also Bayley versus Naomi for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Man, you see, I forgot it. So we just move on from that. Super Showdown was bad. That was horrible. All right. Next up was the Elimination Chamber. This was actually, I think this is one of the pay-per-views for the first time since, I think 2014 or 2015. It's one of the first pay-per-views since then to not have a world title match, period. Like, no world title matches at all. I think this is one of the first pay-per-views to have that in a long time. Beyond that, a couple things to take away from this pay-per-view. First off, Drew Gulak versus Daniel Bryan to start the show off. That was a great match. Like, the guy gave the props where it's due. That was a very good way to start the pay-per-view. That was a very good match. You had Aleister Black versus AJ Styles. That was a great match. That's when Undertaker made his appearance. Screwed AJ Styles. That was a good match. Of course, the Miz and Morrison defending their SmackDown Tag Team Championships in a Tag Team Elimination Chamber match. That was a good match. And of course, Shayna Baszler dominating 5 other women, eliminating all the women by herself in the main event. That was great. That showed how much of a threat Shayna Baszler was heading into her WrestleMania match with Becky Lynch. That was a great way to do it. Other than that, everything else is forgettable. I believe the Street Profits, who won the Tag Team Championships from Seth Rollins and Murphy on an episode of Raw, defended them here. They retained. Oh yeah, this is also when Sami Zayn won the Intercontinental Championship from Braun Strowman. I remember that 3-1 handicap match. Yep, that was that too. That was eh. So with those 3 good moments, those good four those good 4 moments. And then the other ones that don't really matter. I'm gonna give Elimination Chamber a C. I'm gonna give it a C. It has some good moments. It also has some moments you can really forget. So I give it a C. And Elimination Chamber was okay. It wasn't really serious. So move on from that, which leads us to the first pay-per-view in WWE history. The first WrestleMania in WWE history with no fans and in no stadium, no arena, no pyro, no fanfare, no nothing. WrestleMania 30, what's that? 30, is it 36? I forgot the number already. Jesus. I think it's WrestleMania 37. WrestleMania 37 took place in the WWE Performance Center. Not only that, but it was a 2-day event. It had a lot. I mean, it was taken away from the corona because of the pandemic and everything. So WWE called an audible. They thought people would thought about no WrestleMania, but now it's moved to here. So everything was eh. But I'll say this. If it wasn't for the move, we would have never got The Undertaker versus AJ Styles in that Boneyard match. We would have never got that match. So I'm not gonna say I'm happy for the pandemic. I'm not gonna say that, but I'm glad WWE thought about it like that. And if it wasn't for that, we would not. We would have got a regular match. We would have got Undertaker with AJ Styles in a regular match. And that's being honest. We probably would have gotten a regular match, and it would not have been the way it would have been. And that's how I see it. But maybe that's not the case. But either way, this was the WrestleMania where the Undertaker had his very last match against AJ Styles, Boneyard match, one of the best matches of the year. Then this is where you had John Cena versus The Fiend, Firefly Funhouse match, one of the most craziest things I think you'll ever see. You had Drew McIntyre beat Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. This is also where Braun Strowman took Roman Reigns' place against Goldberg for the Universal Championship. Braun Strowman won that. You had the triple threat ladder match between John Morrison, Kofi Kingston, and Jimmy Uso for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. That was one of the matches of the night. You had Edge versus Randy Orton, last man standing match. That was a great match. You had Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley for the NXT Women's Championship. That was a hell of a match. Other than that, there's nothing else really to talk about with that. I mean, you had Aleister Black versus Bobby Lashley, Aleister Black winning. You had Otis versus Dolph Ziggler with Otis winning. You had the fatal 5-way for the SmackDown Women's Championship, Bayley retaining with the help of Sasha Banks. You had the Street Profits retain against Angel Garza and Austin Theory after Andrade had to get pulled out. You had Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins, with Kevin Owens having probably one of the biggest moments of the night. I think that's it. Yeah, that's all I really can remember off memory. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can remember off memory. That's the only things I really remember off that WrestleMania alone. Would it have been better in an arena? Probably, maybe. It depends. But for what we got, I gave WrestleMania a C+. I gave it a C+. It was long. Like, if you combine both nights together, that's like 8 to 9 hours of content. So that's long. That's super, super long. Remember, I went to WrestleMania last year. That was long. But regardless of the fact, it's a C+. Again, Undertaker's last match, John Cena and The Fiend, that was memorable. You just gotta take it for what it is. It's to take it for what it is. So WrestleMania C+, I give it that. Following that was Money in the Bank. And once again, WWE went creative. with this one because the men's and women's Money in the Bank ladder matches not only took place together, but they also took place inside the WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut, which made this match or matches very interesting. It was an interesting experience. But sadly enough, that's all it really was. It was just more reflecting on the Money in the Bank ladder matches. The other matches really weren't that great. I guess Drew McIntyre with Seth Rollins was actually that was a very good match. Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship was all right. It was okay for what it was worth. What else was there? I think Bayley defended against, Nikki Cross. No, that was Tamina. She defended against Tamina. Asuka was part of the Money in the Bank, right? I'm sorry. I know Bobby Lashley faced, I think he faced R-Truth. That's all I remember off memory, truthfully. This is when Asuka and Otis both won the Money in the Banks. And we're going to get to Asuka in the next pay-per-view. And we're going to get to Otis later on down the line. Because we're going to talk about that. But just the Money in the Banks, just the Money in the Bank matches and the WWE Championship match with just those two matches, I give Money in the Bank, I give it a D. A solid D. Because other than, just those two matches, the Money in the Bank really isn't something to really view. It's not really something you can go, oh, wow, yay. Go watch that. No, just go watch the Money in the Bank matches. And go watch the WWE Championship match. You ain't got to watch nothing else. You ain't got to watch nothing else. Nothing else is worth watching. I'm sorry. Nothing's worth watching. Speaking of, we move on to Extreme Rules. No. We move on to Backlash, actually. This is actually Backlash, yeah. We move on to Backlash. I thought it was Extreme Rules. No, Extreme Rules is after Backlash. So we can move on to Backlash, where this was reflected by the greatest wrestling match ever. It's not the greatest wrestling match ever, but it was one of the best matches of the year. And personally, for me, one of the best matches I've ever seen. Like, when I tell you these two put on a classic, that is what it was. That was a classic match. You got to give it up for that. The problem is, this pay-per-view was a one-show or one-match pay-per-view. A pay-per-view that is like, you have a match of the year, but all the other matches before it were not great. This was Braun Strowman versus the Miz and Morrison in a 2-on-1 handicap match for the Universal Championship. That match was pointless. There was no point for that. This was also Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. That was actually a good match. That was a solid match. Jeff Hardy got buried against Sheamus. That makes me aggravated. Asuka, who became the Raw Women's Champion after Becky Lynch relinquished it because she was pregnant. That match was forgettable. I think Bayley defended her title. No, she defended the tag team championships, I believe. Her and Sasha defended the tag team championships, I think against Alexa and Nikki. I don't know if that was it. But yeah, I can only remember the main event and the world title matches. And of course, Jeff Hardy getting buried. That's all I can remember. Other than that, there's nothing else really to remember from this pay-per-view. So what do you give a pay-per-view that had... My phone is going off. So what do you give a pay-per-view that had one of the matches of the year? I give it a D+. That's what I give it. I give Backlash a D+. A plus because of the main event. That's it. That pay-per-view was literally a one-match pay-per-view. And it's sad to say, but that's what it was. And we move on. We move on to Extreme Rules. And this one was kind of... It's hard to explain. Because you had Drew McIntyre versus Dolph Ziggler for the WWE Championship in an Extreme Rules match in which Dolph Ziggler was only allowed to use weapons for himself, and he still lost. Like, how do you lose? You had Braun Strowman versus Eater of Worlds Bray Wyatt in a Universal Championship match. Well, for the Universal title, which I believe Braun won because he got out the swamp, but technically he didn't because the Fiend actually dragged him out and then he popped back up. I don't know. This was Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio, eye for an eye match, which sadly enough, that was the match of the night for me. You had Bayley versus, I think this is Bayley versus Nikki Cross. This is also Asuka versus Sasha Banks, where that whole debacle of, Bayley becoming ref and counting the 1, 2, 3. All of a sudden, Sasha's walking out as Raw Women's Champion. That's that. That was oh god, that was stupid. But it is what it is. Anything else? Oh, yes, it's Cesaro and Nakamura becoming SmackDown Tag Team Champions. That was cool. It was supposed to be MVP versus Apollo Crews, but that never happened for the U.S. title. And that's all I can remember off memory. So because of that, there's not really anything truly memorable you can really remember from that pay-per-view. I give Extreme Rules a D-. I can't give it an F. It wasn't a terrible it wasn't a horrific bad show. It was okay. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't crazy. It was alright. For what it was worth, it was okay. Which leads us to, if I'm not mistaken, leads us up to SummerSlam, where this is when WWE kind of picked it up. I think WWE picked it up in SummerSlam, and I think they did. Well, let's get into it. So this was headlined with Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton, won for the WWE Championship. Excuse me. This is also The Fiend versus Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship, in which The Fiend won, but this is when Roman Reigns returned. And this is where everything started turning up. This is when Asuka wins the Raw Women's Championship from Sasha Banks. This is when Bayley beats... No, this is when Asuka challenges both Bayley and Sasha for both the women's championships. The first person ever... I think the first person ever to challenge for 2 titles in one night. That's Asuka. That was Asuka. She lost to Bayley, but beat Sasha. This was also Dominic Mysterio's debut match against Seth Rollins. Seth won that. Street Profits defend against, I think, Angel and Andrade again. That got annoying. And I think that's all I can really remember. Yeah. I think that was it. SummerSlam, the way it ended was fantastic. The way it ended, it got the world talking. It got the world moving. So with that, Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre was a good match. I just hated the finish. Asuka winning the Raw Women's Championship. With those in line, I give SummerSlam a C+. I give SummerSlam a C+. Again, with Roman Reigns coming back and for the way the pay-per-view ended, I think that makes the pay-per-view a little bit more up. It's pretty much one of the better SummerSlams you'll see for me. So yeah. Okay. Now, We go from there to Payback. A pay-per-view that should not have happened. That pay-per-view should not have happened. That was, no. The fact that that pay-per-view was literally a week after SummerSlam. A week after SummerSlam. Made no sense. That was rushed. It made no sense. That pay-per-view was not good. That pay-per-view was not good. Let's see. It was main evented by The Fiend versus Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. Roman Reigns wins in the most heelish way you could win. That was okay. That was good. That was good. Keith Lee beats Randy Orton in Keith Lee's first pay-per-view match. That was cool. Actually, that was in between for me because I didn't want Orton to lose if he was going to still challenge for the WWE Championship. But you didn't want Keith Lee to lose because that was his first pay-per-view match, so that made no sense. This is when Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax beat Sasha Bailey for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships, and that started a whole... That's where kind of the Bailey and Sasha Banks feud was about to begin. This was Bobby Lashley beating Apollo Crews for the United States Championship. This was also... That's all I can remember, actually. Did Asuka defend the title that night? I don't even remember. But that's all I can remember, is that. So, because of that, and because of the fact that it literally was a week after another pay-per-view, I give Payback an F-. No, I give it an F+. I give it an F+. Yeah, I give it an F+. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So WWE went down after SummerSlam, but now it rose back up. It went back up because the next pay-per-view was Clash of Champions. And boy, do we gotta talk about that, because WWE Clash of Champions produced 2 matches of the year. The beginning match and the end. We'll talk about it. One of the matches I'm talking about is Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso for the Universal Championship. The reason why I call it one of the matches of the year is because of the story that came with it. This was Roman Reigns' heel persona blossoming. Like, it was just the story it told against our own family member. Jey Uso challenging for a world title in 2020. That was a big deal. And it was the main event on top of that. That match had so much around it. If you've never seen that match, you need to watch that match. That's a very good match to watch. Of course, this was also Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton 2 in an ambulance match. And that match... the build-up to the match was okay. The match itself was... It wouldn't hit you like it should. This was supposed to be Bayley versus Nikki Cross, but Nikki Cross pulled out, so it became Asuka, and then that wasn't really a match. And Sasha Banks came to try to get her revenge on Bayley, who betrayed her a couple weeks prior. This was also Asuka versus Selena Vega, and Selena Vega's last pay-per-view match ever. I think it was also Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza again. God. This was also... Smack the Tag Champions match. That was none. Oh, this was also the second match of the year. Sami Zayn versus AJ Styles versus Jeff Hardy. Triple threat ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. One of the best matches of the year. If you've never seen that match, you need to watch it. That was great. So because the fact that this pay-per-view had 2 matches of the year, I give this pay-per-view a good B+. I give it a B+. No, I give it an A-. Let them give it an A-. I give it an A-. Yeah. I'm going to give it an A-. that Roman Reigns Jey Uso match was just so damn good. And then that triple threat line match, that was so damn good. You need to watch both those matches. You never did. Those were great matches. Man, those were great matches. After that came Hell in a Cell. And once again, WWE provided us with 2 matches of the year. WWE is 2 for 2 right now. Okay. I'm digging it. This was headlined by the 3 Hell in a Cell matches, which was Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre 3. This is when Randy Orton finally beat Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. This was Bayley versus Sasha, in which Sasha finally won the SmackDown Women's Championship in one of the best matches you see all year. And this was Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso for the Universal Championship, which started the night off. And once again, if you never listen, you need to watch that match. Roman Reigns is the hottest damn thing in WWE right now. If you are a Roman Reigns hater, you cannot hate Roman Reigns for what he's been doing the second half of the year. What he's been doing is amazing. That match with Jey Uso was so fantastic. The story around it, amazing. Everything was beautiful. But the problem is, those 3 matches held the pay-per-view up. Even though technically Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre wasn't really that great because that rivalry already overstayed its welcome. So the match itself was kind of dry. But this was also the night where Otis was buried forever. Because this is when he lost the Money in the Bank to The Miz. And he has never recovered since. Which, God. Yeah. Okay, so again, WWE went 2 for 2 for this. The Hell in a Cell matches were good. God, that Otis match gets me mad every time I think about it. But regardless of it, I give Hell in a Cell a B+. A B+. I can't give it an A-. I can't. Because that Otis match, I can't. I got to give it a B+. It's got to be a B+. I understand. B+, that's it. So now we move on to the fourth main event pay-per-view of the year, Survivor Series, one of my favorite pay-per-views of the year. And this one wasn't bad. I can't even say Survivor Series was bad. This was headlined by The Undertaker's final farewell. After 30 years in the business, The Undertaker says goodbye. That was well put. It ended the night, so that was great. If you've never seen that, you should. That was great. This was also Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. That was a very good match. You need to see that as well. This was also The New Day versus the Street Profits. That was all right. I know you saw that too. This was Sasha Banks versus Asuka. Was it Asuka 4? I think it was like the 4th match of the year. That was all right. That really wasn't great. That really wasn't fantastic. It was okay. This was also Bobby Lashley versus Sami Zayn, which was not great because Bobby Lashley pretty much dominated Sami Zayn. And of course, this was the 2 traditional Survivor Series matches where Team Raw, the men's Raw team, swept Team SmackDown. And this is also where Seth Rollins would not be seen for the longest because of everything that happened. And this is also where Lana was the sole survivor of the women's Raw team. And guess what she did? Nothing. She did nothing. So, because of the Undertaker farewell, and maybe the Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre match, the Street Profits versus New Day was actually a good match too. I give this pay-per-view a B-. Yeah, B minus. Yeah, give it a B minus. Yeah, B minus is good. That Lana, God, Lana shit got me tight. It really did. It really did. Jesus Christ. Oh man. To now, all this leads us to the final pay-per-view of the year, which was TLC. And just like I said, the Royal Rumble was a great way to start the year. TLC was a great way to end the year. This pay-per-view was amazing. I think this is the best pay-per-view of the year. I believe so. Because this was headlined by Randy Orton setting the Fiend on fire. That was the main thing. Because nobody really saw that coming. I didn't see it coming. I didn't believe WWE would do that. But honestly, I'm glad they thought about it like that, because with no fans and no crowd, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do that. You wouldn't believe it as well if there was a crowd, because the crowd would have saw that, oh, well, the Fiend, if there was a dummy, that was a dummy that Orton burned. I'm glad they have the belief of when they moved the camera, they at least allowed the Fiend, Bray got out, and at least they put the doll right there so Randy Orton could burn him. So, that was a good thing. That was a great moment. That was one of the best moments of the year. Then, of course, you started the night off with Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles for the WWE Championship TLC. The TLC stipulation was not needed, but regardless, it was a phenomenal match. Get it? Phenomenal, because AJ Styles was in it. Yeah. This is also when the Miz cashed in his Money in the Bank and failed. So that was stupid. So they made the Money in the Bank a flipping joke, but regardless of that, it was still a good match. This was also Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens in a TLC match that was so damn good. I'm telling you, Roman Reigns turning heel is the best thing in WWE in the last 10 years. I will continue saying that, because what Roman Reigns is doing is amazing, man. It's amazing. And it continued in that match. If you've never seen If you've never seen Reigns and Owens TLC from TLC, watch that. That was a great match. What else was part of that? You had the Hurt Business winning the Raw Tag Team Championships from the New Day. You also had Sasha Banks versus Carmella, and probably Carmella's best match. That match was solid. And of course, Charlotte returns, teaming up with Asuka as they beat Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. That match was so predictable to see, but regardless, it happened. So beyond maybe that match, but the highlights was, of course, Orton and Fiend, the 2 world title TLC matches. I give TLC a solid A. A solid A. I can't give it A+. I can't. Only because of the women's tag team match. No, it was too predictable. And, the Sasha Carmella, it was a good match, but how we got here, I didn't like. But other than that, I give it an A. From beginning to the beginning of the match and the end of the match, it made it worth it. So from there, I give it an A. Best pay-per-view of the year for me. And that's it. You know what I'm saying? That's it. Every pay-per-view ranked of 2020. It was a very interesting year. It was a very crazy year, but we got through it the best way we can. So, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, comment it, subscribe to my channel, please. We're trying to get to 600 out here. We only have 509 the last time I checked. If you want to hear more of my WWE talk, because this isn't the first video I made, my subscription should be right there. Not my subscription. My playlist of my WWE talk should be right here. If you wanna see my NBA talks, cause I talk about the NBA as well, which I should talk about, but I'm gonna see after tonight. NBA talks are right here. If you like 2K, my 2K playlist right now for 2K21 is right there. And of course, if you like to subscribe, it's right here. So, you know, it is what it is, man. Till next time, it's been Rose, man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the love, support. As always, I appreciate everything. From the good to the bad, the negative and the positive. It is what it is, man. I'm just trying to do what I do the best way I know how. So until next time, peace, love, 100. Yeah.